and welcome to Anmaree's workshop. My name is Anne-Marie and I like to make stuff. So this morning I decided I had a few extra hours, some things opened up, and I decided I could dedicate myself to a complete sew. If you've watched any of my other videos, I like to sew in spurts as I fit it in amongst my day. I kind of dedicate the early morning and the late evening to my sewing because during the day I run a household. So today with my pattern, I have a few minutes available, so I'd like to enter that challenge. I believe it is Sew Maxi Mother's Day 22. I will verify that before I put it in there, but the challenge is to sew something maxi, something with lots of tiers, something out of the box, something by your fabric choice that's spectacular, and I have just the project for that. So stay tuned and I will show you what I'm making today. So this is Very Easy Vogue 9253. Here is the line drawings. It takes, let's see, the view I want to make is B, 45 inches, takes 7 1/8 yards of fabric, or 5 yards of 60-inch fabric, which I have an Ankara length of fabric that I want to use to do this. It is quite a stunning piece. It is loud. It is not for the faint of hearts. Luckily for me, I don't have any problem with loud. So let me tell you what I love about this pattern. This pattern has 5 pieces to make, 5 pieces to cut out. I will show you later in this video. I've cut out my pieces, and let me show you my fabric. You can see me coming from a mile away, but I think it's going to be stunning. I've decided to hack this pattern. This is my second or third version of this pattern. Marcy Harrell on her channel, and hopefully I'll put a link or a card up here, she hacks this pattern to death. Rush right over there as soon as you finish watching that and see all the possibilities of this pattern. Do not get thrown off by this pattern envelope. I bought mine a long time ago. Since then, Vogue has republished this with a larger envelope and with a live picture of a woman wearing it. I hack mine in many different ways. Now, one of the hacks I do is I remove the zipper from the back of the dress because of shoulder injuries from playing too much soccer when I was a kid or a young woman. I really have a hard time with zipping up the back. All right, so I'm going to remove that zipper and I'm going to put it in the front because the décolleté on this pattern goes very deep, almost high waist to my high waist measurement. So I'm going to put in an invisible zipper in the front, and then I usually anchor my ties at the side, and when they loop over and tie, they will cover that closing, which I will close with a hook and an eye. So that's one of the things I do. Now, as you can see on this pattern, we're included, us apple-shaped women are included. You see that rectangle? It's not that far from an apple shape, okay? Just a little bit more of a, just a little bit, but pretty close to rectangle, all right? So I love it because it hits at really the thinnest part of my waist, which is underneath my bust, above my belly button. Now, where it gets murky and squishy is a little further down. So I'm not a pear shape, which would be ideal because you can get away with a lot of stuff with a pear shape, but apple shape, it kind of shrinks the things that you can do. And I got to give it to Vogue. They do tell you, sometimes I ignore them, but they do tell you what shapes their designs work best on. So come along and I'm going to sew this. I think it's not going to take that long. I think the hardest part about this dress without the zipper and such is going to be the baby hems. Now, one of the first things I did was cut out my pattern pieces. So I just wanted to verify for you that this took a very few pieces to cut out. This is 1, 2, 3. The pockets were 4. The front and the back are 5, and 6. So it only took 6 pattern pieces to cut out. Now, it did take, my Ankara fabric came in a 6-yard length, and it did take almost the entire 6 yards. Now, as I said, I'm going to hack my pattern. In other words, I am not going to have a zipper in the back. So it was easy for me to place this pattern piece on the fold, allowing for the seam allowance that would have been in place in order to accommodate a zipper. So I moved my piece over, say about 2/8 or 4/16, something like that, to accommodate the zipper that I'm not going to be putting in place. All right, this is like I said, a very simple sew. So I have already chalk marked in my darts. So I'm gonna go ahead and sew those in, and then we'll go ahead and get started on this pattern. Now on the front piece, I'm going to secure my darts in place, my pleats in place. I'm going to stitch within the 5/8 allowance to kind of hold them in place, so I don't have to worry about these pins all that much. But I did this on the left side and the right side, and once I stitch them in place, we are moving right along. This pattern does not take very much time. Now, as most good sewers know, we iron sometimes more than we sew. So I'm ironing my pleat, my darts in the back of this dress towards the center of the back. All of these darts and pleats help define your body. And I just find like the more I sew a garment, the greater success I have with it. So that's the back of the dress ironed. And now I'm going to iron those pleats in the front. Now, in general, I love to French seam almost everything I make within reason. I do use my serger quite a bit, but I do love the inside of a garment that has been French seamed, and I especially love how hardy my clothes are, almost to the point of detriment. Like things I've made 20 years ago are still making it with those French seams. It just gives garments more of a structure. But also, you know, some people don't have all that time to do French seams. But luckily for me, I'm at the stage now where I do. Now, if you do not know how to make a French seam, it consists of making one seam of sewing with the wrong sides touching and the right sides on the outside. That's what you do first. And then you're going to trim a little, and then you're going to turn it, you're going to flip it over and sew it where the right sides are touching one another. And by doing that, you encase the first seam inside the second seam. So therefore, there are no exposed edges on the insides of your garment. So first thing I'm going to do, this is my right side of my dress front. This is the right side of the fabric on my back front, and I'm stitching them together in about 1/8 of an inch seam. I use the side of on my machine, how I do I use the side of my presser foot on my machine to let me know how far over I should be. So this is the first pass. I have sewn about 1/8 of an inch over in this seam. This is the right side of the fabric on this side, and this is the right side. Sometimes it's hard to get your mind around it, but this is all the French seam is. Now, I'm going to trim a little bit off. I'm going to flip it inside out, and I'm going to iron this new thing before I do my final pass with my sewing machine. Now, while I trim a little bit over, careful not to trim inside of the seam I just sewed. This is to make sure that when I sew this on the other side, that I don't have a bunch of threads or fabric sticking through. It'll become more clear when I turn it inside out and iron it for the final sew. Now, you may have noticed that I did not use pins to secure my fabric. I've been sewing a very long time, so I'm very confident about my fabric placement and if I can keep things straight, but that does not mean I do not use tons of pins to help me sew. And if you are just beginning to sew, and this is a great beginner project, the only thing I find that would be difficult is maybe putting in a zipper, you know, if you've never put one in before. But I think that you will use pins according to your experience and the fabric. This is 100% cotton fabric. It's very, very stable. There's no slipping and sliding. Matter of fact, it almost grips the other piece of cotton when you lay them on top of one another. So I'm not that worried that I'm going to have a slippage. And this is the third one of this dress I've made, so I don't feel, I have confidence in how it comes together. So now I'm going to iron it and come back and do the final stitch on the top of this French seam. Now that I've pressed my seam in place, now the wrong sides are on the outside, and that's perfect, because if you had sewn this without making a French seam, the wrong side is what you would have sewed it on. But since you sewed it on the right side, you've now made the potential to be able to enclose that raw finish inside this new seam that you are going to stitch. I stitch mine now about 3/8 of an inch over, so it will encapsulate the stitch underneath, and I'll show you how it all works out. Now all I need is a press, and I'll be able to show you that now I have a seam completely encased. I know it's so loud, it's hard to see. A seam encased inside, and there'll be no fraying, and it will also help the garment be more structurally sound. Okay, so let me go ahead and press, and I'll be right back. All sewn. Now, the next step for French seam, if I was doing this in a shirt or somewhere that I wanted to be more tailored and structured, is that I would come back along this encased seam that I have here, and on the outside I would top stitch it down so it would give it this nice structured look. But this dress is a bit more romantic, softer than that, so I'm not going to stitch it down. And the pattern does not require you to do French seams. It's just something that I like to do with mine. Now, because I have hacked this pattern, there's no zipper in the back. Now, if you're following this along to do this and you feel comfortable with the zipper in the back, that you don't have any issues, then put the zipper in the back. I'm only taking it out of the back because I have shoulder issues and I'm apple shaped. So I'm gonna have to do another hack. Now, the band on this dress in the pattern is enclosed or attached in the zipper at the back of the dress. And because that's not happening, and I don't want it to happen, I'm gonna have to attach my bands at the sides. So I can't French seam the sides yet. Or I might not be able to French seam it at all. We'll have to see. I think I did on the last dress. But because on this dress, another hack I'm going to do is I'm going to put a black satin binding along the edges, on the sleeves, and on the band to kind of break up all of this craziness. So because I'm going to do that, it will not follow along the pattern instructions. I'm going to sew the band and then add my satin bias tape to the band before I enclose it at the side. But first, I gotta make my lunch for my dad. So I'll be back soon. So far, so good. All right, back from making lunch. I'm back on the job. Alrighty, so this is the black satin bias tape that I want to use on the edges of this dress just to help break up the explosion of color. I'm not scared of color, but sometimes a little outlining kind of gives it a little extra added punch. So I'm going to go ahead and add this around the edge of the ties. All right, I've done one. I've added the black satin trim to one. I'm not sure if I should go all the way around or just come to an end. I guess I gotta figure that out before I put them and close them in the side, right? Now I did iron my band in half before I added it. It was just easier to handle and things matched up. I think it's gonna be a spectacular dress, but I think the outlining of the black will make it really pop. All right, now I'm gonna add my bands to the side of my dress. Now the instructions will tell you to add it to the back seam in the zipper, but since this is an apple-shaped dress, we got rid of the zipper in the back because I hacked this to deal with some issues that I had. So I'm adding my bands at the side, but I still want to do my French seams. So you're gonna have to trust me on this. All right, so I'm going to take my band and I'm gonna put it in the position I'd like it to be at the side. And the side are these little curved pieces right here. This is the sleeve and it's attached to the side of the dress. Okay, now, because I'm making a French seam, I have, this is the front of the dress, and this is the back, and these are the right side, and they're facing out. The wrong side is in the middle. These are the right sides that are facing out. I've got to take I'm gonna need a pin this time. I have to take my band, and I want the black lace to be facing up, and I'm going to put it in between the two pieces with that 5/8 of an inch seam allowance left at the end to anticipate, because I'm going to attach the skirt here, right? So I'm going to use pins this time. I'm not going to eyeball this. All right, I'm going to insert it about maybe 5/8 of the way in. I'm going to put one pin here and another pin on the other side to hold it in place while I work this out, okay? So one there and one there. So you can see I have a pin holding it in, coming up. Don't let it go inside the thing. It's not gonna work out with a French seam. Hold on, follow along. Okay, so I stitched my 1/8 inch seam all the way around, including this craziness right here, right? So now I'm going to turn it inside out so that I can trim away the excess. Oh, no, keep it right side out. And I'm going to trim away, except for this. I'm not going to trim this away. I'm going to trim away this excess. All right, are you with me? Now that I have trimmed the seam allowance, I've trimmed it, I'm going to turn it inside out. And I'm going to press it, and this little tag left over from the is now on the inside. So I'll trim that after I've already stitched. So now I'm going to press it, right? And then I'm going to stitch my 3/8 inch seam along this line, and it will encase all of the ragged edges, as well as solidify the tie in place. Trust me. Now, when I have completed my 3/8 inch seam, when I turn it inside out to the right side, it should have all of my raw edges enclosed, and it should also have my tie on the outside where it should be. Now I can always go back now and trim the little excess that's in here. All right, now look, this instruction is because I'm hacking the pattern. I'm altering the pattern to suit me. If you are not apple shaped, or if this is your first dress or a beginner pattern for you, then you just follow the instructions in the pattern envelope, and you would enclose it in the back with the zipper. My zipper placement is not going to come until I get to the front of the dress. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is, now that I've worked on the top, I'm going to edge around the neckline with my black satin bias binding. I'm going to edge around the sleeves to kind of give it a little bit, and that'll be it for the black satin binding. So far, so good. Here is the satin bias tape lining. I think it makes a big difference. It helps outline this bold print. All right, now it's time to make the skirt. Okay, so now I have transferred my dart markings from the back of the skirt piece with a tracing wheel and chalk onto the back of the dress. I have lined up my points, and I'm going to sew the dart on the back of the back skirt. That's what's going on next. Now that the darts are stitched in place, I'm going to press them towards the sides, and I'm going to go ahead and get ready to start working on the front two pieces. Pockets need to be added, and a zipper inserted. Let's get started. Now I'm going to French seam the center back. Now remember, French seams are not necessary for if you're just wanting to sew your garment in a faster method, but it's something that I like to have in my garments because I told you before, I love the strength of them and the finishing on the inside of the garment. Okay, time to trim. And I think one of the things I love about sewing is that, I don't know, maybe it's the drone of the machine or the colors of the fabric. I just find it's a great time. It's almost like a meditation for me. Like I can sew and listen to music. I can sew and listen to a book tape. I can sew and talk to friends. like I can watch movies that I have watched before, but if it's a really interesting movie, I'm not so good at that, because that's when I tend to have the really crazy things happen, like sewing the wrong side of the skirt, or sewing the sleeves on backwards, or if it's a complicated jacket or something like that, or a complicated pattern where I need to really pay attention. A brand new streaming television show or movie, it's not a great time to do that when I'm sewing. But music and other things, and I enjoy it. I've been waiting for the sewing bug to have died, and it has not happened yet. All right, time to press and turn to the other side. I'm doing French seams, you don't have to. Now it's time to attach the pockets on the back, and then I'm going to work on the front. But I want to show you how long these pockets are. Is another thing that really recommends this dress, because there's room for your cell phone in here and your little purse. And another good thing about this dress. Looks like we're getting somewhere. There's the top, and here's half of the back with the pockets in place. Now it's time to work on the front. Now remember, I'm hacking the front. I am going to put an invisible zipper in the front so I could get in and out of this dress. So I'm going to include a card and to take you to a vlogger who I think does an excellent video on inserting invisible zippers. I'm going to go ahead and insert mine, and then we'll go ahead and finish this up. Now that I have the pocket sewn on the sides of the front and the back, and I've inserted my invisible zipper, I have quite a bit of skirt that I have to attach to the bodice. But I have to stitch the sides closed first. So that's the next step I'm going to do. Time to trim. All right, so all in all, if it wasn't for the French seams, this dress would be finished already. So I think it's a really good pattern for people who are beginning sewers. I think you're going to get a lot of bang for the amount of sewing you have to do. It has a great sweep to it. It's very, very dramatic. I intend to wear it with a camisole under it. I don't feel comfortable having that deep a V in the front. It does go quite low, but I think it's just the thing for certain women who love that look and can wear that look. But because I love this dress so much, I am very happy about the décolleté on it and the way the dress presents itself. Almost done with this side. I will trim the other side, turn it inside out, steam it or iron it, and then do the 3/8 seam. And then, my friends, I think we're almost done. Oh, wait, gotta sew the top to the bottom. Now it's time to line up the bottom of the dress with the top of the dress. If it doesn't fit exactly, then we'll have to do some modifications, because sometimes when you adjust a pattern to fit you, sometimes if you don't follow it all the way through in all different aspects, when it's time to assemble the whole thing, it doesn't quite match up. So because I made waist waistband alterations and zipper alterations. I might have to adjust a pleat or something like that. We'll see. Let's hope for the best. Well, indeed, when I moved the side seams to allow more space for my middle, I did have to adjust those darts, but now I'm attaching the top to the bottom. All right, so now I am going to fit it, try it on, and then if all is a go, I will trim the waistband and I will overcase the raw seams of the waistband with some more black satin piping to kind of finish it off. And then all it needs is a baby hem at the bottom and we're a go. On the initial fit, it's perfect. Now I will not wear, this was the shirt I had on, I would probably wear a camisole that will come down here so it'll give me more of the V. But as you can see, the V ending all the way down here, if you're larger breasted, it's up to you. You might want to rock it, but I don't think I can. Anyway, so it's the perfect length. I love the effect of the black satin with the print. I love how it fits. I love these huge pockets. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that baby hem, and this dress will be done. Oh, I wanted to take a minute for anyone who's using adaptive sewing. The hack I did on this dress was to put an invisible zipper right here. That way I did not have to reach behind me to zip up from the back. Made it very easy to step in, put your arms through, and zip up. Lots of people have arthritis and have other issues that make it difficult for them to get in and out of clothing. I think this is an excellent pattern for you. The belt covers the top of the loop. I was going to put a hook and eye, but I don't think I need it. All right, putting the loops in the side eliminated the need for the zipper in the back. There's no opening in the back. You simply open it up, zip down, and you can step in and out of this dress. All right, so I think it's a winner. I think it's good for apple-shaped people, pear-shaped people, square-shaped people. I think it's a really great pattern. All right, on to the baby hem. Now that didn't take too long, and I just think it gives a nice finish to the inside of the dress. All right, baby hem time. Now I'm taking a measure of the hem. This one's not so bad. I've had bigger hems than this. All right, on a baby hem, the first thing you do is you stitch. I use my presser foot as a guide, and I stitch to the outer edge of my presser foot, which was probably about a little over 1/8, and that's what I stitch that first. Okay, now that that's done, and I've stitched around the entire edge, I am now going to fold it over on that stitch line, and I'm going to stitch very narrowly near the edge. very narrowly through the edge. Step 2. All right, now that you have folded over so this is the second time you've sewn around, and you fold it over and you have this excess fabric that you have to trim off. So it's gonna take a little while to trim. So let's trim and talk at the same time. I wanted to talk about what it feels like when you finally get to the stage of your life, and it could be any stage, any age, where you have some time that you can do things for yourself, pursue the interests that you truly, truly, truly love. And that is what I find myself in. And I wanted to talk a minute about sometimes you feel like it's not that you haven't earned it, it's like you won't give yourself the time to do it. See, I use my applique scissors to trim away very close to the stitching. All right, but not through the stitching, very close to. Anyway, so my story is I taught 4th grade for a couple decades, then went back to school to become a school librarian because I have loved libraries my whole life. I've loved books my whole life, and I enjoy being in libraries, and I enjoy teaching the entire school compared to the kids who were in my class, and I enjoyed it so much. But what happened is I did not count on, I knew I was going to take care of my parents one day, but I didn't do the math and realized that by the time I was retirement age, for full retirement as a school teacher, because I came to teaching a little later in life, my parents would be in their late 80s. And they had retired to Jamaica years before. And I just didn't really think about how it affected me. I was coming on holidays. I was coming at Christmas. I was spending summer vacation here. I was upping my game to be here. I knew I was going to be here one day. But then it was that one day, my mom was ill, but my dad was handling it, and we had nurses in the house, and he was committed to her not being in any kind of a institution. So we were all we're throwing in our time, and I knew I was coming. But then the unthinkable happened. My dad, who's been a rock his whole life, he got sick. And when he got sick, then it was time. So I retired early, sold my house, packed up all my stuff, which was considerable, and moved to Jamaica. And when I moved here, 2 weeks later, my mom passed. It's like she was just waiting for me to make it here. And then my father and I began this walk where I got to do my childhood again. And I had a really good childhood. I really did. Lived all over the world. And so now I'm here. So when I got here, I don't know about you, but I was so used to being on the treadmill, like so used to taking care of children, husbands, jobs, stuff that women do all the time, that it was really, really hard for me to stop or feel that I could slow down or feel that I could do the things that I like to do. I had a hard time with it. But recently, as can often happen, I experienced technical difficulties. So I was almost at the end of the story anyway. But what I was really talking about was that you have every right to pursue the things that you love to do. And so you should relax and do them. There's no better time than the present. Now, as far as the baby hem, I lost that footage too. So after you trim, you turn it under and you stitch it one more time, and it gives you this really narrow, very structured hem. You could also do a regular hem where you fold it over twice, iron it, and stitch it in place, whichever length you decide to do. I had a wonderful time doing this dress. She came out so beautiful, and I will include a picture of how it looked on the mannequin. I am going to get my black camisole and I will model this for you when I release this. But thank you for following along. I'm so sorry. I think I had a really good end to the last video. This will have to do. Keep sewing, keep making. If you like this content, like, subscribe, and share. I'm gonna make them anyway, but it would be nice if you did because I love teaching. Anyway, see you on the next video. Good night.